Let's face it, sometimes the last thing you want to do after work is to make dinner for the family. The stress of making something quick and healthy while accommodating all the likes and dislikes of everybody can be discouraging. And that's why I'm rounding up some of my quick, family-friendly, healthy recipes and meals that can be made and on the table in 30 minutes or less. My tried and true quick recipes use real ingredients and simple swaps to keep dinner time enjoyable for everyone. Hello, my name is Colin Roche, and I'm the Dean of Biscayne College for the Liberal Arts and Social Sciences at St. Thomas University. And welcome to my kitchen. Got another great recipe meal for you today that's 30 minutes or less to get on the table. So it should be really helpful for those that are in a time crunch. I have the recipe here, which I'll post. Mongolian beef. This is been to P.F. Chang's, some other Asian restaurants, Chinese restaurants. This is one of their most popular menu items. But it's easy to make at home, so you don't need to go and do takeout. You can cook this yourself. Again, I have the recipe here. I'm going to serve it over some rice. Maybe I'll throw in some vegetables. I think I have some green beans, stuff like that. But, again, as all the recipes that I do on this show, improvise as needed. It's your recipe. Again, no recipe police. You can do what you want. It's just a guideline. So if you have different vegetables you want to add in, if you don't like something like garlic or wine or onions, don't use it. If you like it, maybe spicier, add more spice, change it up, make it your own. This is just a baseline. And I'm going to give you some tips on swaps and substitutions, things that can even make it even quicker for you. So one of the ideas that I'm going to tell you about right now before we even get started is rice. Rice, long grain rice. You can do brown rice. There's great flavored rices like jasmine and basmati, great flavors. Most of the white rices are 2-to-1 ratio. Brown rice, a little bit more water needed. It takes a little bit longer to cook. Most of the white rices are 20 minutes or less. So for this one, take a pan, with a cover on it. Add in, I usually do a cup of rice, then 2 cups of water, right? Put it on the heat, let it boil. Reduce it to a simmer, let it cook. 20 minutes later, you have rice. Now, you don't have to use water. You could use chicken stock. You could add in things like turmeric or saffron, or put in a can of tomatoes for some of the water to make it more of a Spanish or Mexican style rice. You can change it up. But rice is easy to do. And here's a good tip. What I do anytime I'm cooking rice, I cook extra. I'm already turning on the stove, so instead of 1 cup of rice, which may serve that meal, I'll do 2 cups of rice. It's going to swell up, and that'll give me 4 cups. I'll use 2 that night, and I'll save 2, which is what 1 cup of rice makes right here. 2-3 cups. When it's all done, I'll put this in the refrigerator. Now I have something as a time saver, which I'm going to use today. I just take it out, put it into a bowl, microwave it, I have rice. Or it's an easy stir fry. Or I could add it into soups, or I could add it into gravies. And it's a thickener, and then puree it up. So having cooked rice on hand is a great time saver. So I'm going to serve our dish today with rice, but I don't need to cook any because I already did, and I'm going to be using what I cooked the other day to microwave. Okay, so the recipe you'll see here, Mongolian beef. Typically it's made with flank steak, and you can make it with flank steak. You can make it with round, top round, or something sliced really thin. Those are usually cheaper cuts of meat because they're a little bit more tougher. You can still use them because we're going to pound it so thin that it's going to be okay. But if you have the wherewithal and the time and the money, and you see some steaks that you want to use, I would use those because inherently they're going to be a little bit more tender. So I'm going to put on here flank steak, but also sirloin steak, ribeye steak, strip steak, any of those. Sometimes you can find them on sale, BOGOs, things like that. Grab them and use it for this dish. This also stretches the meat a little bit. So here I have 2 New York strip steaks I picked up. So this is just over 1 pound, maybe closer to 1 1/4 pounds. So that's 2 steaks. That would usually serve 2 servings if you're just going to do a grilled steak. But we're going to chop them up. We're gonna pound them flat. We're gonna make this dish with them, and we're gonna at least double it. We're gonna get 4 portions out of this, maybe more. So steaks, use what's available for you. Okay, then we're gonna just cook it up, and we're gonna make a sauce with ginger, garlic, chili peppers, soy sauce, brown sugar, and at the end we're gonna put some scallions in it. So it's gonna be a pretty quick dish that we're gonna serve over our rice. And maybe I think I have some green beans in there. I might throw some green beans in with the beef at the end just to fortify the vegetables. Anytime I can get more vegetables into a dish for my kids, it's better. So I always try to sneak some in, pieces of carrots, maybe you got some peas, something along those lines. Okay, so let's get started on this. So first thing we do is we have our steaks. We're gonna wanna trim them up, and then we're gonna wanna cut them. So I have this sirloin steaks here. Okay, so you can see they have this, fat cap on them, which is usually left on when you're grilling a steak. But for this particular recipe, we don't want it. So I'm going to trim up this fat around the edges on it, just so we don't have it. And you can do that as well. If some's on there, that's okay. A little bit won't hurt. Throw that away. And then I have this one. So I'm just trying to keep as much meat on there as I can. Now depending on what meat you buy, you probably won't have to do any trimming for some of them. Usually like around top sirloin steaks, things like that don't have a lot of fat on them in the grocery stores or wherever you buy your meat from. There we go. So now you can see I've trimmed them up pretty good. Lost that fat cap. Now we're going to cut those into about 1/4-inch pieces or slices. So these we're going to pound down and make them into our Mongolian beef slices. Okay, so you can see I just cut these into little 1/4-inch pieces here, or so 1/2-inch pieces. But now we're going to flatten them. So I like to put plastic wrap down. It helps flatten the steaks and allows them to, expand without getting stuck on the board. It also keeps your board clean. So we just put these down, give it some space in there so they can expand when you hit them. Good. I'm going to put a plastic wrap on the top. You can do this in a Ziploc bag. I do that sometimes too. And you have to do it in like shifts, put 4 in, hit it if you can, and then do 4 more, take them out, but whatever works. So I have the plastic wrap. Now I have a little mallet here. Okay? We're not going to use this aggressive side here. We're just using the flat end, and we're just going to flatten them down. Now if you don't have a hammer, you could use a wooden rolling pin or even a pot. You get a heavy bottom pot here, you just smash them that way. Be a little harder to control, but you can do it. Because this flattening down one is going to make it much more tender, and it's going to allow it to cook a lot quicker. So I'm going to finish these up, and I'll be right back. So if you were doing a tougher cut of meat, you definitely want to pound it as thin as you can, because that tenderizes it. But this one, it's pretty tender anyway, so we'll use it. So you can see how thin I went with them. Here, let me just show you one. So you can see it, it's pretty thin. Now what we're going to do, as you'll see there in step 2, is we're going to take a Ziploc bag and we are going to put cornstarch in it. And we're going to put the meat in this cornstarch, which is going to be on the outside. It's kind of like flour. So it's going to help with the cooking, but it's also going to help thicken our sauce. So I put about a 1/2 cup of cornstarch. So put that in there. It's going to be like our breading. Okay, again, no measuring. It takes too much time unless we're baking. We just drop our steaks right in here. Put a couple in at a time. Give it a shake. Okay, throw a few more in. And get them all in there. Make sure they're coated well. After I get them all in, I'm going to kind of massage it a little bit. Make sure that cornstarch adheres to all of these pieces of meat so they're all nice and covered before we're going to cook those in the skillet in our oil, basically pan frying them. Okay, so now I can close it up here, leave a little bit of air space in it, so then we can, just kind of shake it all around. You got kids at home, and they want to help, this is a great thing for them to do. Just make sure the baggie's closed so you don't get cornstarch everywhere. Okay, so now I can take out some of that air, and just make sure I'm getting that cornstarch in each piece. This is also what's going to give it a nice crispy edge as well. So you can see that. Okay, we'll put that off to the side. And now we can get ready to cook our steaks. Okay, for the next step, we got to need a large saute pan, frying pan, skillet here. I'm going to turn that on. We'll start it on high. We're going to use some oil, vegetable oil, canola oil. I wouldn't use olive oil. You can if you're in a pinch, but it does impart a flavor. It's not really a flavor we want. We're going for more of that, Asian flavor. So peanut oil will be great if you're not allergic to it, but easy to get canola oil or vegetable oil. So in here, I put in here about 1/4 of a cup or so. You're not deep frying it, but you do need enough, and some of it's going to be absorbed by the meat with the cornstarch. So put the canola oil in a frying pan, heat on medium-high heat, and then we're going to add this steak. Okay, in a single layer, cook for about 30 seconds each side or so, for about a minute total. And then we're going to remove the steak, put it onto a plate, and hit it with some salt. Okay, then we're going to build our sauce and then put the steak back in it. Ooh, I can see some pieces of meat here that haven't been coated in the cornstarch. See it there? So it didn't get cornstarch. So just open those up, make sure they're all the way exposed and that they get the cornstarch on them. So you want it completely covered like this. So there shouldn't be any red from the meat. So just kind of go through it before you cook it while the oil is heating up. And then when we put it in the pan, we're just going to shake off any excess. That looks good. So now how to tell when the oil is hot, you can always put a little piece in, but if you look at the oil, you can see shimmers in it. So the oil, on the surface of it, as it starts heating up, it'll start shimmering, almost like smoky waves. And you look at it, and that kind of gives you an idea that it's up to temperature. You could also use a thermometer and put it in there. Usually we're going to be frying at about 300, 350 degrees, so that'll give you a temperature. But once you think it's hot, you just take a piece of the steak and kind of hang it in there, drizzle it over it, and see if it starts to fry. See, it's a little bit coming up, but it's not really that quick yet, so I'm going to wait on that. So let's think about our sauces. So we're going to have garlic. I'm going to use jarred garlic. Garlic, if you watched any of my videos before, it's a quick time saver. Not as good as fresh, but if you're going to be cooking it inside of a sauce, sometimes it doesn't matter. Time is more important. So you could use this, but as I've shown before, it's very easy to use fresh garlic too, and it doesn't take but 5-10 seconds to work with a clove of garlic. But I'm going to use this. We have our red pepper flakes. We have soy sauce, or tamari. I like tamari. This one is just a naturally brewed soy sauce and gluten-free and less sodium, so I like that. We're going to put in brown sugar, and we've got our green onions or scallions that we're going to chop up to put in at the end. And we also have ginger. Now I would use fresh ginger for this. If you had to use the dried, that's okay, but fresh. Again, this is a hand of ginger. When you see the whole thing, you break off a piece, and you just have to peel it. And you can peel it using the back of a spoon. Just get this off, or a little knife if you want, or a peeler, but really you just have to scrape off that bark, and then we're going to mince it up. We'll do that in a second. Let's fry the meat first. Okay, I think our oil is ready. So let's see. Yep. Now you don't want to overload the pan, so you don't want to cook a lot of meat at the same time. So just put in 6 or 7 pieces, and we'll do it in batches. And then I'm going to use my tongs to put it in. That way there I can go down right into the oil without splashing it. And if I do touch it, it's not going to burn me. The tongs here. We'll get it in nice and close. Again, make sure they're all well covered in that cornstarch. Single layers. Fried steak. And this is the longest part. Okay, I think you can see that. It's cooking up in that oil. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces in this size pan. Not too much. If you put too much in there, what happens is it drops the temperature of the oil, so you're not going to get a good crisp fry. Plus, the steam can't evaporate. So if the steam gets trapped, you get water in your oil, which is going to give you a lot more splattering. So here, the water is coming out of it and evaporating, so that looks like smoke coming up. It's evaporation, but the underneath is getting nice and crispy. So it's better to take your time and do it in multiple batches than to try to rush and put too much in the pan all at once. Okay, my temperature again is on high, medium high. It'll be working pretty good. And then turn them over. Up and get a little brown on the edges, which is what we're looking for. Let it go another 30 seconds or so. Put it onto our plate. We're going to top it with a little bit of salt. I have my salt cave here, which has kosher salt in it. I like the kosher salt, the bigger grain, the granular, so I can see it when I apply it. You can also use an electric one if you have it, or a salt mill. This one's by Zwillings. You just push the button and it goes right on top. This one I have pink sea salt in it, so it's a little bit different flavor. Okay, these are ready. I'll put them in my pan, my plate. So you can see them here. A little brown on the edges. Hit them with a little bit of salt. And start our next batch. Okay, and then I have 3 or 4 more pieces left, so that'll be my third batch. So I took 3 turns of frying with this size pan, but it's only been 5 minutes or so. I'm going to put some of this rice into a bowl so I can microwave it. I'm going to do 1 portion for our plate up. Turn these. Okay, let's do our ginger then. So we have a tablespoon of ginger. So I'm going to cut off a little section here, about a tablespoon. I'm just going to take this knife and kind of peel off some of this outside layer. You can use, as I mentioned, a spoon when we show you that. Your spoon will work too. Probably a little safer when you're doing a little nub like this in case you slip. You get some of it still on there, that's okay. Okay. Now we're just going to chop this up. And we want it minced, so pretty small. This is going to add to the base of our sauce, which is going to make it really fresh flavored rather than using like a dried ginger. And this meat. Good. Right, that is ready to go. We have our garlic ready to go. We have chili peppers. You can see here, I have the ginger, garlic, and chili peppers. Saute up, stir in the soy sauce, the water, and the brown sugar. So, get this steak out. See how color that is there? Looks good. Okay, so now our steak is all cooked. We're going to take this excess oil, because we don't want that much, and pour it into a container of some sort. Leave a little bit in there. Now we're going to add, just that fat off to the side that will be discarded later. Now we can add our garlic and our ginger. So how much garlic was it? 4 tablespoons. A lot of garlic. Gonna add our ginger in there. Some red pepper flakes. I'm not into too much spice, but maybe half a teaspoon. Add more if you want more. Then we're gonna just move that around in our pan here. Scrape it up all that was on the bottom. Kind of the foam, the cornstarch, which is gonna help thickening of our sauce. And then we're going to add our 3rd cup of soy sauce. Again, no measuring. Then scrape up the bottom. Loosening all that on the bottom. I'm actually going to use this. I'm going to go get the bottom up cleaner. Again, it's rehydrating all that cornstarch that was on the bottom. You can see how thick it is. It's like molasses now. But it's got great flavors and smells, the ginger, the garlic, the red pepper flakes, adding a little zing to it. Put that back on, turn that heat down to low. Okay, now that that is nice and thickened up, we're going to add our water. So we have a 1/2 cup of water. Give that a stir for a minute here. And now our brown sugar. So the brown sugar was 1/3 cup, a very sweet sauce with offsetting that soy sauce of the saltiness. So 1/3 cup. I guess. You can always add more. Get your brown sugar, you got our water, soy sauce, red pepper flakes. You see that everything is in there. And then I'm going to bring that up to a boil. And then we're going to add the steaks back in it. I'll use these scallions in just a second. Looks good, good, good. All right, it's back at a pretty good rolling boil here. So I'm going to take these steaks and we're going to coat them in this sauce. Now this sauce looks a little thin right now, but don't forget there's cornstarch on these steaks. So that's going to come off into the sauce and actually be a thickening agent. So it's going to thicken up. So I have the heat pretty much off or very, very low. At this point, everything is done. We just need to incorporate it. So I'm putting the steaks in. I'm taking my time here because I want to make sure each one gets surrounded in that sauce. Because that cornstarch is going to absorb a lot of this soy sauce mixture as well with the brown sugars, which is what's going to give it all that flavor. I'll show you that in just a second. These last ones in. Okay, see? They look great. All coated, it's starting to thicken, so bring it up with temperature a little bit more just so it starts to thicken on its own. Leave that off to the side. I'm going to do some scallions now. So, scallions, usually the red-green part, the top is very tough, so we don't use that. But when you buy this dish in a restaurant, a lot of times you'll see these put on top. It's more for decoration, but it's so hard, it's hard to chew these. But the bottom part is what we really want. So I've already washed them. So I'm going to cut them on a bias cut, just on a little bit of an angle to give it a little bit of decorative look. And then I'm going to throw them in. And then we're going to save some for garnish on the top. There we go. Let's make sure we get all these coated as well. Oh, that's thickening up nicely now. Now, if you wanted to add some other vegetable in here, kind of fortify it, as I mentioned, you can. I happen to have some green beans here. They've already been cooked, but you could certainly put raw in. It's hot enough now to cook them. I'm going to throw some green beans, maybe add some carrots, bamboo shoots, anything like that would be nice as well. And it'll help stretch out those steaks. Okay. It's done. Taste that sauce. Wonderful. Now let's plate some parsley here. We'll use that as a garnish. Get a plate, new clean plate. So we have our rice from the microwave. Nice and steaming. Quick to use. I'll put this right in the middle. One portion. Okay, and then we're going to take some of the steak, turn my heat off. I'm going to put it kind of around the edge. So if we gave them, 4 pieces, we would have, 4 or 5 portions. And then I'm going to take the same spoon, take some of the sauce, put it all around. Now if it gets too thick on you, it thickened up too much because of the cornstarch, just add a little more water. Okay, then I'll add some parsley. There it goes. Voila, Mongolian beef. Cooked at home, don't have to go to P.F. Chang's or any of these other places if you don't want. Do it yourself. Take any type of steak, stretch it by serving it with this rice, some more vegetables, carrots on the side, and you have a wonderful meal. But let's try it. Okay, I got a knife and fork. Smells great. You got that sweet from the sugar, saltiness. You also have the heat from here, which is just right. It's not too much. And then you have that soy sauce that's kind of bringing it all together, which would be great when I scoop up some of this rice with it. And the steak is super tender. And we got it all in less than 30 minutes. Meal on the table. So hope you try this at home, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye-bye now.